Is asking questions about ourselves a good formula for self-awareness? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. Is asking questions about ourselves a good formula for self-awareness? Well, this all sort of gets classified under know thyself. And what I found is that in life, the key from going from ignorance to awareness, bridging this gap in here, is a question, to ask the right question. And when one asks the right question, they can go from ignorance to awareness and finding out. If you ask the right question, the question links the two. So in this case, we'll say that right now the subject that I'm ignorant on is me, and awareness about me is where I want to get. So the key is to ask the right question. And in this case, the questions are going to be about the subject that I want to draw nearer to my intellect so that I can analyze it and gain perspective and hopefully clarity. And those questions in this case are about me. So the exercise that I've been engaging in this life, which is a philosophical one, is I see things in the reality and they cause me to want to inquire more about certain things. And then eventually I turn it on myself. And so I'll see something happen and it'll interest me. And then I'll go, oh, am I that thing? Do I have that in me? What about me? Right? So I'll sit here and I'll say, I'll read about whatever, a spiritual prophet, and go, they say, oh, well, I met God. And they go, well, have I met God? Can I meet God? Right? That's a question. Can I meet God? And that brings me to awareness of like, oh, well, maybe what's my body about? And then I go, oh, my body has all these different functions. Like, oh, I can meditate. So it's people who say they connect to God, they meditate or pray. So I go, okay, can I meditate? Question, can I meditate? Okay. And the answer is yes. And then it's, okay, let's go to a YouTube video or visit my local Buddhist monk. And then the next question is, can someone teach me to meditate? And then I go, yes. All right. And then go down the rabbit hole. Next thing you know, I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm meditating, and I'm on my way to connecting to God, right? And it could be for anything. Not just teaching ourselves skills. I mean, skills are easy. You go, can I cook? And you watch a YouTube video. You go, can I kick a soccer ball? Whatever. And then we get to areas where we ask questions about ourselves that don't have YouTube video answers. We ask ourselves these intangible questions. Do I have a strong heart? And I gotta sit with myself, right? That question, the internal questions will automatically put us into a meditative mode, I've found. So I go, do I have a good heart? Well, I can't find that outside of myself. That's a question YouTube doesn't have an answer for. It's a question a professor doesn't have an answer for. I gotta ask my friends, they'll give me their opinion, but ultimately I gotta sit with myself and I gotta go, hey John, do I have a good heart? And then I sit here and it puts me into my inner journey and I start to feel myself. And then I get the answers from myself. It's a systems check, internal systems check. Okay, maybe I do. And then I go on in such a manner, asking questions that I want to know about myself, asking questions to find out the answers that I want to know about myself. And answers that I get about myself, each one's like a little jigsaw puzzle piece of self-awareness. Okay, I know this about my heart, and then you can ask all the physical things you want. Like people do it all the time. How good looking am I? How tall am I? How capable am I? What is my purpose on life? Right? When you start getting the really internal ones and the really intangible ones, like what is my purpose in life? What is my function in life? How much love do I have? How can I operate in this world? How can I make my way in the world? When you start asking What do how am I perceived? When you start asking these types of questions, you really start to catalyze perspective on yourself. And as you do that, so like you get these little pieces at first, and then as you ask like bigger questions, you start to see, oh, some of these pieces start to go together. And then when you start asking like the really big things, when you've had enough of those, like you have enough jigsaw pieces, and you're starting to see pieces of yourself, and you're starting to see yourself a little bit, then you start to ask like the really big questions, like who am I? Ones that don't have a pointed answer. Who am I? And when you start to ask, who am I? Then those are questions of awareness. And questioning and catalyzing your awareness is the process that takes you out of ignorance into awareness. And that's the question, like, who am I? Now you can ask, who am I, just in general, just to get started. And it may begin with the smaller pieces. Basic stuff, your height, your weight, your race, your gender, da 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 da. It'll tell you all that stuff, right? Which most of you have a pretty good handle on. And then once you get the physicals done, and once you get a lot of the external world stuff, the real pay dirt is in the internal constitution. And when we ask ourselves, who am I? We're not necessarily asking what's our effect in the physical world, although that's a place to start. And we're not necessarily asking, do people think I'm pretty? Do people think I'm smart? Da, 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 da. Really, when we start on these lines of questions, ultimately we're asking about questions about our soul and how our body's constituted in relation to our soul and our principles of character. And we start to ask things like, am I a truthful person? Am I honest? Am I a leader? Am I a follower? Do people trust me? Do I have strength? Do I have perseverance? Am I loyal? Do I have good values? What are my morals? And you start to really get into things that are really just between you and yourself. Questions only you can ask yourself, answers only you can give yourself. And as I've repeated that process, as one repeats that process of ignorance of self, questioning self, awareness of self, and you get good at it, and you get comfortable with it because it's a self check, and it's just between you and yourself, and the questions and the answers do catalyze evolution. The more one gets used to it, of that cycle, and trusts it and trusts ourselves, we build a connection with ourselves. We build a relationship with ourselves. And when we get deep enough into ourselves and we find out how many systems like we actually comprise internally, like how many systems are occurring and being coordinated within ourselves to create our own experience that we call ourselves, then it turns into a relationship with ourselves. And I did a video about connections turning into relationships, turning into networks. And then at the end, once we realize we connect ourselves with questions, once we get a decent amount of knowledge of ourselves, we'll see that we have a relationship because we trust ourselves and we go back and forth and there's give and take. And then at the end, you'll find out there's so much stuff going on inside yourself that we develop a network. Like we realize that we ourselves are an internal network. And it has all the same rules and principles that any network does, to include synergy and, internal communication. We can change it to get we can optimize results, we can get different results. But we really end up, you'll find out that you are a very, very complex system. And when you become aware of your system and how it operates, then you become a network. Right now, until you do that, it's a latent network. It's there, and it's doing certain autonomic functions. But until one goes through the process of awakening it, the awareness of it, and then understanding how to use it, it's still sort of latent and just running on autopilot. But once you do the questioning process and you become intimate with it, which is yourself, then it comes to life. But that's why you need to ask all the questions leading up to it, because before you boot yourself up in that manner, you really need to know, what are your morals, what do you really think about things, do you have a clear view on who you are internally and externally. All these things need to occur so that when the network that you are comes to life, and it comes to life through your own power. It's powered by your soul and your own inquiry. And then once you power it up and you get your own network booted up and running, then you can do all sorts of wonderful things with it. I highly recommend logging into the universe. Some of you'll know that as God, but whatever, you can just call it the universal frequency. Once you get your network booted up, you just log into the infinite intelligence, the Wi-Fi of the universe, and say, hey, I got my network booted up, it's me, and I'm logging in. And then wow, then like amazing things can really happen. That's just a slight recommendation, but open to all philosophical inquiry. It's philosophy. You can do what you want. That's the whole point of it, is that we're being independent thinkers, just sharing our thoughts here. So questioning or asking questions about ourselves is, I think it's a good key to self-awareness. That's a good formula for it, because really the formula is like anything that is in ignorance of, you ask a question about. And what does that do? Asking a question about something brings the subject of, or really the object of the question, into your mind. And in your mind, as you examine something, as it comes closer to you in your mind, then the information about that thing becomes available. And then a relationship can happen, and then it's unpredictable, but generally enlightening. And so you can do that with anything, right? Like you could be ignorant about the game of baseball. So you're like, well, what about baseball? And then boom, all of a sudden you're looking at the rules of baseball. Now you know more, and you're coming out of ignorance, and you're going into awareness about the rules of baseball, because you brought, with a question, you brought that object close to your mind, close to your intellect for your analysis. And now you know more, now you're in awareness, right? And it's the same thing with yourself. You just go, I have a question about myself, and then boom, now you've brought yourself and whatever aspect of that question is into focus and brought it close to your intellect for analysis. And really, that's kind of the whole formula about becoming self-aware. And evolution in general for a human is just taking time to pay attention about yourself, and then scrutinize yourself with your intellect and everything as you know, and then come out the other side with awareness, and then allow it to grow you and be comfortable with it, and then until you do the next cycle of self-inquiry, and then you find out more, and then you build and build and build. Bigger picture develops. Next thing you know, a network develops, and off to the races. Well, thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner. I hope you found it helpful, and as always, have fun.